I'm Robert, 57 male. I've spent the last 30 years of my life drafting blueprints, calculating loads, and ensuring that the foundations of the buildings I design are strong enough to withstand anything the elements throw at them. I live in a quiet, leafy suburb of Chicago with my wife, Sarah. We've built a good life, comfortable, honest, and steady. But as an architect, I know better than anyone that even the most beautiful facade can hide a structural failure that's just waiting to bring the whole house down. My son, Michael, is a good man with a big heart, but unfortunately, his heart blinded him to the cracks in the foundation of his own relationship. He wanted to throw me a surprise party, a gesture of love that I appreciated more than I could say. But while he was busy blowing up balloons and curating playlists, my wife and I were about to discover that the woman he planned to marry was constructing a disaster. Before this story unfolds, I'd love to connect with you. Please let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. It's amazing to see how far these stories can travel. If there is one thing I have learned in 3 decades of architecture, it is that details matter. A missing millimeter on a blueprint can result in a leaking roof, a sloping floor, or a lawsuit 5 years down the line. I have made a career out of being meticulous. I am the guy who checks the measurements 3 times before I cut. I am the guy who reads the terms and conditions. It drives my wife, Sarah, absolutely crazy sometimes, but it has served me well. I was sitting in my home office, the late afternoon, sun slanting across my drafting table. Even though I'm a senior architect now and do most of my management work on a computer, I still like the feel of paper and pencil. I was reviewing the specs for a new municipal library project, enjoying the quiet hum of the house. Sarah was downstairs in the kitchen. I could smell the faint, comforting aroma of roasting garlic and rosemary. It was a Tuesday, which meant roast chicken. We are creatures of habit, Sarah and I. We find comfort in the rhythm of a predictable life. At 57, I was starting to feel the pull of retirement. Not immediately. I loved my work too much to just stop, but the idea of slowing down, of taking fewer projects, was becoming more appealing. Sarah, who has been a high school principal for the last 10 years, felt the same. We were looking forward to the next phase: travel, gardening, maybe grandchildren if Michael ever settled down. Speaking of Michael, my phone buzzed on the desk. A text from him, coming over for dinner with Chloe. Big news. See you at 6, I smiled. Michael is 28. A graphic designer with a creative spirit that I like to think he got from me, though he lacks my obsession with order. He's a bit of a dreamer, wearing his heart on his sleeve. He had been dating Chloe for about 8 months. Chloe Vance. I leaned back in my chair, tapping my pencil against my chin. I wanted to like Chloe. I really did. She was 27. Pretty in a sharp, polished sort of way, and worked as an event planner. On paper, she was a catch. She was organized, ambitious, and seemed to adore Michael. But there was something about her that always made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. It was a subtle thing, like a floorboard that squeaks, only when you step on it a certain way. She was too curated. Her laugh always felt perfectly timed. Her compliments felt strategic, and she had expensive taste. Not the I appreciate quality kind of taste, but the I need you to know how much this cost kind of taste. I went downstairs to help Sarah. She was already chopping vegetables, her silver, streaked hair pulled back in a messy bun. Michael and Chloe are coming for dinner, I said, kissing her cheek. I know, she said, handing me a knife to help with the carrots. He texted me too. Big news, do you think? Engagement, I asked. Sarah sighed, a complicated sound. Maybe. He's been talking about it. You don't sound thrilled, I noted. I just want him to be happy, Rob. And she seems fine. She's very driven. Fine is a glowing endorsement coming from you. I chuckled. Sarah has a nose for character. You don't survive 20 years in public education without being able to spot a liar from 100 yards away. If Sarah was hesitant, I knew my gut feeling wasn't just paranoia. When they arrived, the energy in the house shifted immediately. Michael was beaming, looking slightly disheveled in his flannel shirt and jeans, while Chloe looked like she had just stepped out of a catalog. Perfect makeup, designer bag, heels clicking loudly on our hardwood floors. Hey, Dad! Mom! Michael hugged us both, vibrating with excitement. Hello, Mr. and Mrs. Sterling, Chloe said smoothly, offering a polite, stiff hug. She handed Sarah a bottle of wine. It's a reserve Cabernet. The sommelier at the club recommended it. Thank you, Chloe, Sarah said, checking the label. That's very generous. We sat down to dinner, and the big news wasn't an engagement ring. Not yet, anyway. So Michael started, grinning at Chloe. Dad, you know your 35th anniversary with the firm is coming up next month, right? I nodded, taking a sip of the wine. It was good, I had to admit. I'm aware I was planning on bringing donuts to the office and calling it a day. No way, Michael laughed. 30, 5 years is a legacy, Dad. And with Mom's birthday the week after, we want to throw you a party. I frowned. A party? Michael, that's not necessary. We're not really. Not a backyard barbecue. Chloe interrupted, her voice silky. She placed a manicured hand on Michael's arm. A real celebration. A gala. We want to rent out the Gilded Hall downtown, get a caterer, invite the whole firm, all your friends, family. A black tie affair to honor your career. I nearly choked on a carrot. The Gilded Hall. That was one of the most expensive venues in Chicago. I had designed a renovation for their lobby a few years back. I knew their rates. That sounds incredibly expensive, I said bluntly. Michael, you're trying to save for a house. We can't ask you to spend that kind of money on a party for me. Dade, stop, Michael said, waving his hand. I want to do this. You've supported me my whole life. You paid for college, you helped me get my car, let me do this for you. Besides, Chloe is an event planner. She has connections. She can get us family discounts, vendor rates, the works. We can do a $20,000 party for a fraction of the cost. Chloe smiled, a tight, confident expression. Exactly, Rob. It's what I do. I can pull strings. We'll get the venue at cost, the catering through a friend of mine, and the decor from my own inventory. It'll be luxurious but affordable. Michael has been saving, and we've set a strict budget. Please, let us do this. I looked at Sarah. She had that small crease between her eyebrows that appeared when she was worried, but she looked at Michael's hopeful face and melted. If you're sure, Michael, Sarah said softly. It's a lovely gesture.
It's settled then.
Chloe clapped her hands together once. I'll handle all the logistics. You two just need to show up and look fabulous. I'll need a guest list from you, Rob, by Friday, and don't worry about the deposit. Michael already transferred it to the separate party account we set up. Party account? I asked. Yeah, Michael said, taking a bite of chicken. Chloe suggested we open a joint account just for the event expenses so we can track everything easily. Keeps it separate from my personal savings. Transparency, you know? Smart. I said, though the word felt heavy on my tongue. It was smart in theory, but mixing finances with a girlfriend you aren't married to yet, that made the accountant inside me scream. Over the next 3 weeks, our lives were consumed by the Sterling Gala, as Chloe had dubbed it. To her credit, she seemed to be working hard. She was constantly on her phone, negotiating with florists, emailing DJs, and sending us color palettes. However, the budget conversation kept coming up in strange ways. One evening, Michael stopped by the house alone to pick up some old photo albums for a slideshow. He looked tired. Dark circles were forming under his eyes, and he seemed more anxious than excited. Everything okay, son? I asked, handing him a box of photos from the 90s. Yeah, just busy, he said, rubbing his neck. Work is crazy, and the party planning is intense. Chloe is a perfectionist. Is it getting too expensive? I asked directly. Michael, be honest. If this is hurting you financially, we pull the plug. I'd be just as happy with a pizza and a beer. No, it's fine, he insisted, though his eyes shifted away from mine. We had a little hiccup with the caterer. Apparently, the friend discount only applied to weekdays, and since we're doing a Saturday, it's full price. But Chloe found a workaround. We just had to up the deposit a bit. How much is a bit? A few thousand. It's fine, Dad. I picked up a couple of freelance branding gigs to cover it. I got this. He left before I could press him further. I walked back into the living room where Sarah was grading papers. He's stressed. I told her. I know, she said without looking up. He transferred $3,000 from his emergency fund yesterday. I saw the alert on his old account that's still linked to ours. He did what? I sat down heavily. He's an adult, Rob. He can spend his money. But I don't like it. Why would a discounted party need emergency funds? Chloe said the caterer deal fell through, I explained. Sarah took off her reading glasses. Chloe says a lot of things. Have you noticed she never gives us a straight answer on the vendors? I asked her who was doing the flowers, and she said boutique firm without giving a name. I asked about the music. She said a private DJ. It's all very vague. Maybe she's trying to keep it a surprise. I suggested playing devil's advocate. She's an event planner. This is her show. Maybe she doesn't want us micromanaging. Maybe, Sarah said, her voice dripping with skepticism. Or maybe she's flying by the seat of her pants and making Michael pay for the mistakes. The unease in the house grew as the date approached. We were 2 weeks out. The invitations had gone out, beautiful, heavy cardstock with gold foil lettering. They looked expensive, at least 10 a pop. I did a quick mental calculation, 150 guests. That was 1,500 just on paper. Michael, I had texted him after receiving ours. These invites are incredible but pricey. You sure we're on budget? He replied an hour later. Chloe got them printed for free as a favor from a printer she works with. Only paid for shipping. A free. That was the magic word Chloe used constantly. The venue gave a discount. The printer was a favor. The wine was wholesale. If everything was so cheap, why was my son working nights and weekends? Why did he look like he was carrying the weight of the world? I decided to stop just worrying and start observing. It's the architect in me. You look for stress fractures before they break. I started paying closer attention to Chloe when she came over. I watched how she handled her phone, always screened down on the table. I listened to her stories about her day. Oh, I had the worst time with the venue coordinator today. She complained one night over dinner at our place. She tried to tack on a cleaning fee, but I told her, "Look, I bring you guys so much business, you better waive that or I'm walking." She folded immediately. Michael looked at her with adoration. "You're a shark." "Babe, I protect our investment," she beamed. But something about the story didn't sit right. The Gilded Hall is unionized. They have strict contracts. A cleaning fee is mandatory for events over 100 people. No coordinator has the power to just waive. Because an event planner threatens to walk. It's corporate policy. I knew this because I had read their standard contract when I did the renovation. I kept my mouth shut, but I made a mental note. Check the Gilded Hall policy. The next day I called the venue. I didn't say who I was, just asked for their general event coordinating packet. "Do you ever waive cleaning fees for preferred partners?" I asked the sales rep. "No, sir." The woman replied cheerfully. "The cleaning fee is paid directly to the maintenance contractor. It's a separate union contract. We can't waive it even if we wanted to." I hung up the phone. Chloe had lied. It was a small lie, perhaps to make herself look tough and competent in front of Michael. Or maybe she paid the fee herself and didn't tell him. No, that didn't sound like her. If she lied about the cleaning fee, what else was she lying about? I was starting to feel like I was watching a building sway in the wind, just waiting for the snap. I didn't know yet that the snap would come from a simple cardboard box, and that the debris would bury my son's bank account. The countdown to the party continued, but the celebration was already over for me. Now, it was an investigation. The atmosphere in the Sterling household had shifted from celebratory anticipation to a low-level hum of anxiety. Sarah and I didn't speak about it openly. We didn't want to seem ungrateful or pessimistic, but the tension was there, hanging in the air like humidity before a storm. It was 10 days before the party. Saturday. Michael had gone into the city to meet with a client for his freelance work, trying to scrape together more cash. Chloe had dropped by our house earlier in the morning to leave some staging materials in our garage because their apartment was overflowing. Just some centerpieces and party favors, she had said, breezing in and out in a cloud of expensive perfume. "Don't peek, it's a surprise!" By 2:00 p.m., I was in the garage looking for my torque wrench. I needed to fix a loose bolt on the lawnmower. The garage was my sanctuary, organized, labeled, precise. And right there, in the middle of my pristine workspace, sat 4 large cardboard boxes, taped shut, disrupting my feng shui. I moved around them, trying to ignore them. But the tape on the top box was peeling slightly. It wasn't a professional packing job. It looked hasty. Sarah came into the garage carrying 2 mugs of coffee. "Found the wrench." "Not yet. These boxes are in the way." She sipped her coffee, looking at the stack. Chloe said they're centerpieces. She's very excited about the theme. "Timeless elegance," she calls it. "I hope timeless elegance didn't cost Michael his retirement fund," I muttered. Sarah walked over to the boxes. She's not one to snoop, usually. She respects privacy. But she's also a mother who knew her son was bleeding money. She ran her hand over the top box. "Rob," she said, her voice changing pitch slightly. "This tape isn't sealed. Don't, Sarah." She said not to peek. "I'm not peeking at the surprise," she said, her fingers already working the flap loose. "I'm just checking to make sure nothing is broken." It sounds like glass inside as she opened the flaps. Inside, nestled in styrofoam peanuts, were vases. Clear, cylindrical glass vases. They were nice enough, standard event fare. Sarah pulled one out. "These are simple," she observed. "Elegant." She reached back into the box to rearrange the packing peanuts, and her hand brushed against something paper. She pulled it out. It wasn't a receipt. It was a packing slip. "Amazon Sarah read. Order placed by Chloe Vance." Okay, I said, leaning against the workbench. So she ordered the vases from Amazon. What's the big deal? Sarah's eyes scanned the paper, and then they widened. She went pale. Rob, look at this. That phrase, look at this. It's never good. I walked over and took the slip from her hand. Item set of 12-cylinder glass vases, bulk deal price at $24.99 per set, quantity 10 sets, total $2 to $49.90. Okay, I said, confused. $250 for vases. That seems reasonable. Cheap, actually. Rob, Sarah said, her voice trembling. Michael showed me the budget spreadsheet yesterday. He wanted my advice on how to categorize some expenses for tax purposes. I saw the line item for Dacre vases centerpieces. I felt a cold drop in my stomach. And the line item was listed as imported crystal glassware, vendor lux events. The cost listed was $3,000. The silence in the garage was deafening. The only sound was the distant hum of a neighbor's leaf blower. 3,000, I repeated. For $200 worth of glass? Maybe these are just extras, Sarah suggested, but she didn't believe it. Maybe the real crystal ones are in the other boxes. I grabbed a box cutter from my belt. Opened them, all of them. We tore through the boxes like forensic investigators. Box 29 napkins, cheap polyester napkins. The packing slip showed they were purchased from a discount party supply website. Total cost of $45. Michael's budget spreadsheets, according to Sarah, custom linen rentals than $800. Box 30's party favors. Small gold boxes with a single chocolate truffle inside. The chocolate wrapper said, Kirkland's signature. Costco brand. She had bought bulk chocolates and reboxed them. Total cost maybe $60 for the chocolate and the boxes. Michael's budget spreadsheet. Artisan Belgian chocolates, Thitters $200. I stood back staring at the pile of cheap goods that were being billed to my son at 1,000% markup. She's skimming, I said, my voice low and dangerous. She's not just planning the party. She's scalping him. She's buying cheap crap, creating fake invoices, or just telling him a number, and pocketing the difference. Sarah sat down on a stool looking sick. Why? Why would she do this? She's marrying him. It's going to be their money soon anyway. That's the question, I said, pacing the concrete floor. If they were sharing finances honestly, this wouldn't make sense. You don't steal from a joint pot you control unless you plan on leaving, Sarah whispered. Or unless the money isn't going where we think it is. I added. Michael said they opened a joint account for the party. He puts money in. Chloe pays the vendors. But if the vendors are Amazon and Costco, and she's withdrawing thousands, where is the money going? Sarah asked. We need to find out. Before Michael signs anything else. Before he marries her. We have to tell him, Sarah said, standing up. We have to call him right now. No, I stopped her. Not yet. Rob! She is robbing him blind. I know. But if we call him now and say Chloe bought cheap vases, she'll spin it. She'll say these were backups, or that the expensive ones are coming later, or that her service fee accounts for the markup. She's a manipulator, Sarah. We saw how she lied about the cleaning fee. If we confront her without hard proof of where that money went, Michael will defend her. He loves her. He'll think we're being critical in laws. Sarah bit her lip. So what do? We'll get the receipts, I said, the architect taking over. We map out the structure of the fraud. We find the cracks, and then we bring the whole thing down. I looked at the packing slip again. Order placed by Chloe Vance. She's sloppy, I noted. She left the packing slips in the boxes. She's arrogant. She thinks we're just old, oblivious parents who won't notice the difference between crystal and glass. She messed with the wrong family, Sarah said, her eyes hardening. I went to my tool chest and pulled out a pair of latex gloves, usually for painting, but they felt appropriate now. Pack everything back up, I instructed. Exactly how it was. Same tape orientation if possible. I'll get the clear packing tape to reseal it. We need her to think we never looked. We spent the next 20 minutes carefully repacking the evidence of our future daughter-in-law's treachery. My hands were steady, but my heart was pounding with a fury I hadn't felt in years. This wasn't just about money. This was about betrayal. She was looking my son in the eye, telling him she loved him, while actively draining his life savings. As we finished sealing the last box, Sarah looked at me. Rob, the party is in 10 days. Do we let it happen? We have 10 days to build a case, I said. If we can prove it before then, we stop it. If not, well, the party might be the perfect place for a reveal. That's dramatic, Sarah said. She wanted a show, I replied grimly. I think we should give her one. We went back inside the house. I couldn't look at the kitchen the same way. The warmth was gone, replaced by a cold, calculating resolve. I went to my study and opened my laptop. I needed to see just how deep this rabbit hole went. I remembered Michael mentioning the joint account. He was a trusting soul. He often used the same password for everything, a variation of his first dog's name and his birth year. It was a security risk I had lectured him on a dozen times. Now, I prayed he hadn't listened to me. I pulled up the bank website, where we all banked. I didn't have access to his personal accounts anymore, obviously, but I wondered, Sarah. I called out. When Michael lived here after college, did we ever take his name off the safety deposit box account? Sarah appeared in the doorway. No, I don't think so. Why? Because if he's still linked to our profile in any way, even just as a signatory, sometimes the bank's interface glitches. It was a long shot. I logged into my main dashboard. Nothing but our accounts. I tried a different angle. Michael had used my email as a recovery contact for years. I went to my inbox and searched. Bank. Nothing recent. Dead end. I sighed. We need to see that bank statement. I can get it, Sarah said. I looked at her. How? Michael comes over for laundry on Sundays. He brings his laptop to work while the clothes wash. He leaves it on the kitchen table when he goes to fold. You're going to snoop on his computer. I'm going to protect my son, Sarah corrected. And you're going to help me. The plan was set for tomorrow, Sunday, laundry day. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, analyzing the structural load of my family. Michael was the load-bearing wall. If he crumbled, everything fell. Chloe was the termite infestation eating away at the beams. I turned to Sarah. We're going to destroy her, aren't we? Sarah's voice was sleepy but sharp as a razor in the dark. We're going to bury her under her own cheap vases. Sunday arrived with a gray, overcast sky that matched my mood perfectly. The deception hanging over our heads made every interaction feel scripted. When Michael walked through the door with his laundry basket, he looked exhausted. His shoulders were slumped, and there was a tightness around his mouth that hadn't been there a month ago. Hey, Mom, Dad, he muttered, dropping the basket by the stairs. Thanks for letting me do this here. Our machine is still acting up, and the landlord is taking forever to fix it. Of course, honey, Sarah said, bustling over to hug him. She held him a second longer than usual. You look tired. Are you eating enough? Just busy, he said, the standard deflection. The party is next week. Crunch time. Where's Chloe today? I asked, trying to keep my voice casual as I poured him a cup of coffee. She's at a brunch with some vendors, finalizing the menu or something, or buying Pop-Tarts to serve as hors d'oeuvres, I thought bitterly. Well, get your wash started, Sarah said. I made that coffee cake you like. Michael smiled, a ghost of his usual grin. You're the best. The trap was set. It wasn't a sophisticated trap, but it relied on the habits of a lifetime. Michael started his laundry, then settled at the kitchen table with his laptop and a slice of cake. I sat opposite him with the Sunday paper, pretending to read. Sarah was busy in the pantry. After about 20 minutes, the washing machine buzzed. I'll switch it over, Michael said, standing up. He left his laptop open on the table. As soon as he was down the basement stairs, Sarah was at the table. Go, she whispered. I didn't hesitate. I slid the laptop toward me. It was already unlocked. I opened the browser. The bank tab was pinned. I clicked it.
Session timed out. Damn, I hissed.
Try the password, Sarah whispered, watching the hallway door. Rover 1997. I typed it in. Incorrect password. He changed it, I said.
Try Rover 1997.
With an exclamation point, Sarah suggested. He added it last year when the requirements changed. I added the exclamation point. Access granted. I didn't have time to celebrate. I navigated straight to the account labeled Wedding Events Joint. I scanned the transaction history. My jaw tightened. Withdrawal. 3,000 transferred as LLC. Vance withdrawal. Thursday 500 ATM withdrawal. Debit 4200. Lux Events LLC. Debit 2,800 800 Venmo. Clovia. Lux Events LLC. I whispered. That was the vendor on the spreadsheet. I clicked on the transaction details for Lux Events. It was a direct transfer to a business account. I quickly pulled out my phone and snapped photos of the screen. Page after page of transactions. Transfers to Chloe. Transfers to random LC's cash withdrawals. The balance in the account was 4120. Michael had told us he put $25,000 into this account. He's broke, I whispered to Sarah. She's drained it. There's $400 left.
Who is Lux Events?
Sarah asked, leaning over my shoulder. I opened a new tab and searched the Illinois Business Registry. Lux Events LLC, registered agent. Chloe Vance. Address, a P.O. box in downtown Chicago. That's I said. She's paying herself. Lux Events is just a shell. She takes the money for vendors, transfers it to her own LLC, and then buys the cheap stuff from Amazon using her personal card. The basement door creaked. I minimized the windows, leaving the browser on a generic news site, and slid the laptop back to its original position. I picked up my newspaper just as Michael walked back into the kitchen. Forgot the dryer sheets, he mumbled, grabbing a box from the counter. He didn't notice a thing. When he went back downstairs, I looked at Sarah. She was trembling. "She's stolen $25,000 from him," she said. "In 3 months. It's worse than that," I said, looking at the photos on my phone. "Look at these dates. The transfers happen almost immediately after Michael makes a deposit. She's not just spending it, she's moving it, siphoning it away. We have to confront her," Sarah said. "Now." "No," I said firmly. "We have the what and the how. Now we need the where. If we confront her now, she'll say the money in Lux Events is being held for the vendors to be paid on the day of. She'll claim it's an escrow. We need to prove she spent it on herself." "How do we do that?" "I have a friend," I said. "Detective Miller?" Sarah asked. "He's a private investigator now, but yes, Miller." I texted Miller immediately. "Need a rush job. Financial background check. Family matter. Can you meet tonight?" Miller replied within 2 minutes. "O'Leary's Pub, 8 p.m. That evening, I told Michael I had a sudden urge to play darts and left him and Sarah watching a movie. I drove to O'Leary's, a dive bar that hadn't changed since the 80s. Miller was in a booth in the back, nursing a Guinness. Miller was a retired detective, sharp-eyed and cynical. We had worked together years ago when a contractor tried to defraud a project I was managing. I sat down and slid the photos of the bank statements across the table. "My son's fiancée," I said. "I need to know where the money from Lux Events LLC is going." Miller put on his reading glasses. He scanned the images. Classic shell game. "She's the registered agent."
Wes.
"Sloppy. She should use a registered agent service to hide her name." "She's an amateur. She's greedy." I corrected. "She's churning through his savings. I can run a trace on the LLC," Miller said. "If she's moving money into personal accounts or paying off debts, I'll find it, but it might take a few days." "I have 6 days until the party," I said. "I'll have it by Wednesday," Miller promised. But Rob, be prepared. Usually when they steal this fast, it's because they're in a hole. Gambling, drugs, or massive debt. "She's an event planner," I said. "She likes nice things. Maybe she likes them too much." I drove home feeling a heavy weight in my chest. Miller's words echoed in my head. In a hole. When I got home, Michael had left. Sarah was waiting up for me in the living room, a glass of wine in her hand. "Well," she asked. "Miller is on it. We'll know by Wednesday." A Monday and Tuesday were torture. I went to work, stared at blueprints, and couldn't focus. Every time my phone buzzed, I jumped. Wednesday afternoon, the email from Miller arrived. The subject line was simply, "The Blueprint." I opened the attachment. It was a comprehensive report on Chloe Vance. Credit score 420s and abysmal. Outstanding debts of $58,000 in credit card debt. Student loans defaulted. Lux Events LLC financials. The account linked to the LLC showed inflows from Michael Sterling. The outflows were not to caterers or florists. $5,000 to Chase Slate credit card payment, $4,000 to Saks Fifth Avenue Tootle, $500 to BMW Financial Services, overdue lease payments of $6,000 to online casino DraftKings. I stared at the last line. Gambling. She wasn't just materialistic, she was a gambler. She was taking my son's hard-earned money, money he thought was buying a celebration for his father, and feeding it into a slot machine app and credit card interest. I called Sarah. "I have it," I said. "She's gambling it, Sarah, and paying off her luxury car. None of it is for the party." "Oh my God," Sarah breathed. "What do?" "We get ready for the party," I said, a cold resolve settling over me. "Michael wants a memorable night. We're going to give him one." "Rob, you're not thinking of—" "The toast," I said. "The father of the groom, or, I suppose, the guest of honor, always gives a toast. I think it's time I presented my findings. But I need one more thing." "What?" "I need to know exactly what the guests are going to see when they walk into that room. I need to visit the venue." "She won't let you in. She won't know." "I'm the architect who renovated the lobby. I still have a key card. I was going to inspect the site. And then I was going to demolish her. The Gilded Hall stands as a testament to the opulence of 1920s Chicago architecture. When I led the renovation of its lobby 3 years ago, I spent months obsessing over the restoration of the Art Deco brass work and the terrazzo floors. I knew the building's bones better than I knew the back of my own hand. And, crucial to my current mission, I knew that the service entrance on the north side had a keypad code that the maintenance staff rarely changed. It was Thursday evening, 2 days before the party. I had told Sarah I was staying late at the office to clear my desk before the weekend festivities. Instead, I drove downtown, parking my sedan 3 blocks away to avoid being seen by any lingering staff who might recognize my car. The evening air was crisp, carrying the scent of rain off the lake. I pulled my coat collar up and walked briskly toward the service alley. The keypad was weathered, the numbers faded. I punched in 1925 enter, the year the building opened. A green light flickered. The lock disengaged with a heavy clunk. I slipped inside, the familiar smell of old dust and industrial cleaner hitting me. I navigated the back corridors, avoiding the security cameras I knew were positioned near the main elevators, and took the service stairs up to the second-floor ballroom where the Sterling Gala was scheduled to take place. The ballroom was dark, illuminated only by the ambient city light filtering through the massive arched windows. It was empty save for a few stacked chairs in the corner. Wait, empty. The party was in 48 hours. Usually for an event of this magnitude, a black tie gala for 150 people, the setup would be well underway. Tables should have been delivered. The stage should be prepped. I walked to the center of the room. It was bare. Panic flared in my chest. Had she even booked the room? I pulled out my phone and used the flashlight to check the event schedule posted near the service elevator. It was a whiteboard updated weekly by the staff. Saturday, Oct. 14th, the Sterling event. 600 p.m. to 1100 p.m. Room the parlor. The Gilded Hall has 2 main event spaces, the Grand Ballroom, which costs $10,000 to rent and holds 300 people, and the parlor, a glorified conference room in the basement that smells faintly of damp carpet and rents for Wers $500. She had told Michael she rented the ballroom. She had shown him photos of the ballroom. He had paid for the ballroom. And we were going to be in the basement. I felt a surge of nausea. It wasn't just the money. It was the humiliation. She was going to shove my friends, my colleagues, the partners of my firm, into a basement room while pocketing the difference. I needed proof. I took a photo of the whiteboard. Then I went down to the basement level to inspect the parlor. It was worse than I remembered. Low ceilings, beige walls that hadn't been painted in a decade, and no windows. It looked like the kind of room where you hold a mandatory HR training session, not a 30th anniversary gala. As I turned to leave, I heard voices coming from the catering office down the hall. I froze. Look, I don't care what he thinks. Just put the Prosecco in the champagne bottles. They won't know the difference. It was Chloe. I pressed myself against the wall, my heart hammering against my ribs. A man's voice replied, sounding wary. Miss Vance, that's illegal. We can't serve alcohol in mislabeled bottles. It's a liability. Fine, she snapped. Then just serve the cheap stuff, but put it in decanters. Tell them it's a house blend. And make sure the appetizers are spaced out. I don't want them getting full too fast, or we'll run out of the entries. You only ordered food for 80 people. The man pointed out, you have 150 guests on the list. Half of them won't show up, she said dismissively. Old people bail all the time. Just cut the chicken portions smaller if you have to. Slice it thin. Make it look gourmet. I clenched my fists so hard my nails dug into my palms. She was starving my guests. She was planning to starve my friends and family to save a few $100s on chicken, while she wore a $5,000 dress paid for by my son. And the payment? The manager asked. The final balance is due today. I'll transfer it tomorrow, she said quickly. My bank is having a maintenance issue. You know how it is. Miss Vance, we need the check by noon tomorrow, or we don't open the doors. You'll get it. God, you people are so uptight. Do you know who my fiancé's father is? He's Robert Sterling. He built this place practically. You really want to be the one to cancel his party over a processing delay. She was using my name as leverage, using my reputation to cover her fraud. Noon tomorrow, the manager repeated firmly. I heard her heels clicking away towards the exit. I waited a full 5 minutes before I dared to move. I drove home in a daze. The scale of the deception was breathtaking. It wasn't just skimming. It was a complete fabrication. She was constructing a Potemkin village of a party, a facade with nothing behind it. When I walked into the house, Sarah was waiting in the kitchen with a grim expression. Where were you? She asked. At the venue. Sarah, it's a disaster. We're in the basement. There's no food. She's using my name to stiff the vendors. Sarah closed her eyes and exhaled slowly. And I found something too. She pointed to the kitchen table. There was a stack of mail. Michael's mail comes here sometimes, right? Since he hasn't updated his address on everything. Yeah, this came today. It's marked urgent final notice. She handed me the envelope. It was from a payday loan company. I opened it. Dear Michael Sterling, this is a final notification regarding your outstanding balance of $12,500. Immediate payment is required to avoid legal action. $12,000. I stared at the paper. Michael doesn't take out payday loans. He hates debt. Look at the date, Sarah said. 2 months ago. Right when the party planning started. She took it out in his name. I realized. She has his social security number. She probably applied online. Or, Sarah said quietly, he took it out because she told him the costs were higher than expected and he didn't want to ask us for help. Either way, it was catastrophic. If Michael took it out, he was desperate. If she took it out, it was identity theft. We have to stop this. Sarah said, tears welling in her eyes. We can't let him marry her. We can't even let this party happen. No, I said, my voice hardening into steel. The party happens? Rob! Why? To humiliate him. To save him, I said. If we tell him now, in private, she will spin it. She will cry. She will say she was trying to give him the perfect wedding and got in over her head. She'll blame the vendors. She'll blame inflation. She'll say she did it for love. And Michael, being the soft-hearted man he is, might forgive her. He might pay off the debt and marry her anyway, thinking he's rescuing her. I paced the room. We need to show him who she really is. We need to catch her in the act. We need the lie to be so public, so undeniable, that he has no choice but to walk away. What are you planning? I'm going to change the plan, I said. Tomorrow I'm going to make a few calls. I'm going to pay the venue manager directly. I'm going to upgrade the room back to the ballroom. I'm going to order real food. You're going to pay for your own party? Sarah asked, bewildered. I'm going to pay to set the stage, I corrected. And I'm going to invite a special guest. Woo, Detective Miller. And he's going to bring the file. I sat down at the table and looked at the payday loan notice. She thinks she's the architect of this event, I muttered. But she's just digging the foundation for her own grave. The next morning, Friday, was a blur of covered operations. I called the Gilded Hall manager, a man named Henderson. Mr. Sterling. He sounded relieved and terrified. I wasn't expecting your call. I know about the basement, Henderson, and the chicken, and the fake champagne. Silence on the other end. I want the ballroom, I said calmly. I want the premium open bar. I want the prime rib. And I want you to invoice me directly. Do not tell Ms. Vance. As far as she knows, her threats worked, and you're doing me a favor. Well, Mr. Sterling, I can do that, but the cost. I'll wire the funds within the hour. Just send me the bill. And Henderson, if she asks, tell her everything is proceeding according to her plan. Understood, sir. Thank you. And next, I called the catering company she had supposedly hired for the flowers. It turned out she hadn't hired anyone. She was planning to use the fake ones from the garage. I hired a real florist. Same instructions, don't tell Chloe. By Friday afternoon, I had spent nearly $15,000 of my own money fixing a party that was supposed to be in my honor. It was a bitter pill to swallow, but I viewed it as an investment in my son's freedom. That night, Michael came over for a final check-in. He looked like a ghost. His skin was gray, his eyes hollow. Everything is set, his voice forced. Chloe says it's going to be magical. I'm sure it will be, I said, patting his shoulder. You've worked hard, son. He flinched. Yeah. Hard, Michael, I said softly. Is there anything you want to tell me? He looked at me, and for a second I thought he would break. I saw the confession rising in his throat. Dad, I'm broke. Dad, I'm in debt. Dad, I think I made a mistake. But then Chloe walked in carrying a garment bag. Here's your tux, Rob, she chirped, oblivious to the tension. And Sarah, your dress is in the car. It's going to be fabulous. Michael's shoulders sagged. The moment was gone. Thanks, Chloe, I said, taking the bag. You've really outdone yourself. She beamed, a shark baring its teeth. Only the best for family. I watched her, thinking about the $6,000 she had transferred to DraftKings. Only the best. Get some rest, I told them. Big day tomorrow. As they walked to their car, I saw Chloe whisper something to Michael, and he nodded, looking defeated. She was controlling him completely. She had him cowed, broke, and silent. I went back inside. Sarah was standing by the window watching them leave. I hate her, Sarah said calmly. Don't worry, I said. Tomorrow, everyone will. The day of the party dawned bright and clear, a perfect autumn day in Chicago. The kind of day that usually makes you feel glad to be alive. I felt like I was marching into battle. I spent the morning getting ready, which mostly involved pacing my bedroom and rehearsing my speech. Sarah was calmer, though her hands shook slightly as she applied her mascara. "Do you have the file?" she asked. "In my inside jacket pocket," I confirmed, patting the thick envelope. It contained the bank statements, the business registry printout, the credit report, and the payday loan notice. And Miller. He's meeting us there. He's bringing a +1, a forensic accountant he works with, just in case we need to explain the numbers in real time. We arrived at the Gilded Hall at 1600 p.m. sharp. The look on Chloe's face when we walked into the grand ballroom was priceless. She froze near the entrance, her mouth slightly open. She was expecting the basement. She was expecting cheap tablecloths and dim lighting. Instead, she was standing in the magnificent, high-ceilinged ballroom with its crystal chandeliers blazing. The tables were set with real linens, fresh orchids courtesy of my secret florist order, and sparkling silverware. A string quartet was playing in the corner. She grabbed a passing waiter. "What is this? Who moved us?" I stepped up behind her, Sarah on my arm.
Chloe!
I exclaimed, feigning delight.
My God, you really pulled it off! The ballroom!
"I thought you said it was out of budget, but you miracle worker." She stared at me, her eyes darting around in panic. She couldn't say no. I booked the basement and stole the difference. She was trapped in her own lie.
Ah, yes!
She stammered, forcing a smile that looked more like a grimace.
I wanted it to be a surprise!
I pulled some strings last minute. "Incredible," Michael said, walking up behind us. He looked stunned. "Babe, you did this. How?" "I thought we were. I told you I'd handle it." She hissed at him, grabbing his arm and digging her nails in. "Just go with it." She was terrified. She knew she hadn't paid for this. She must have been thinking the venue manager made a mistake, or that she was going to be hit with a massive bill she couldn't pay at the end of the night. Her eyes kept darting to the exit, calculating.
"Let's get a drink!"
I boomed jovially.
"Bartender! Champagne for everyone!"
I led the way to the bar. Chloe followed, looking like she was walking to the gallows. The guests started arriving. My colleagues, old friends, neighbors. Everyone was gushing. Rob.
"This is spectacular! Your daughter-in-law is a genius! The food smells amazing!"
I accepted the compliments, all while watching Chloe. She was sweating. She kept checking her phone, probably checking her bank balance, which I knew was hovering near zero. Michael was trying to enjoy himself, but he looked confused. He kept whispering to Chloe, asking how she afforded it. I saw her snapping at him, her mask of perfection slipping. At 700 p.m., Detective Miller arrived. He was wearing a sharp suit, blending in perfectly. He nodded to me from across the room and tapped his lapel. Ready. Dinner was served, prime rib. The guests were delighted. Chloe stared at her plate as if it were poison. She knew she had ordered thin, sliced chicken. She knew someone was paying for this, and she didn't know who. The uncertainty was eating her alive. Midway through the main course, I stood up. The room went quiet. The clinking of silverware stopped. "If I could have everyone's attention," I said, my voice projecting clearly without the microphone. A trick I learned on construction sites. Michael looked up, smiling nervously. Chloe went rigid. 35 years, I began. That's a long time to build a career. But tonight, I don't want to talk about buildings. I want to talk about foundations. Because as any architect will tell you, a structure is only as good as what lies beneath it. I looked around the room, making eye contact with my partners, my friends. My son, Michael, wanted to honor me tonight. He wanted to build something beautiful for his mother and me. And he did. He poured his heart, his soul, and his savings into this night. I saw Michael blush. But I continued, my tone shifting slightly. Sometimes when you're building, you discover that the ground isn't as stable as you thought. You discover sinkholes. Chloe's head snapped up. She knew. I saw it in her eyes. The sheer terror. "I have a tradition," I said, reaching into my jacket pocket. "On every project I finish, I review the final punch list. The accounting of every nail, every beam, every cost." I pulled out the envelope. "So I thought it would be appropriate to review the accounting for tonight." The room was deadly silent. You could hear a pin drop. "Chloe," I said, turning to her. "Why don't you join me up here?" "Dad, what are you doing?" Michael whispered, half standing. "Sit down, son," I said gently but firmly. "Chloe, please." She didn't move. She was frozen. "No," I asked. "That's fine. I can read it from here." I opened the envelope. Item 1, I read. Venue rental. The Gilded Hall Ballroom. Cost $10,000. Paid for by Robert Sterling. A ripple of confusion went through the room. "Wait," Michael said. Chloe said. "Item 2? I continued, ignoring him. Catering. Prime rib dinner. Cost $8,000. Paid for by Robert Sterling. Chloe stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. Rob, can we talk about this outside? I don't think so, I said coldly. We're all family here. Let's talk about Lux Events LLC. Her face went white. Lux Events LLC, I addressed the room. A company registered to Chloe Vance. A company that my son has transferred $25,000 to over the last 3 months for party expenses. I pulled out the bank statement Miller had given me. And let's see where Lux Events spends its money. Is it on flowers? No. Is it on music? No. I looked directly at Michael. It's spent on BMW lease payments. It's spent at Saks Fifth Avenue. And my personal favorite, $6,000 sent to DraftKings Online Casino. Gasps erupted around the room. Michael stood up slowly, looking from me to Chloe.
What? DraftKings, Chloe, you don't gamble. It's a lie? Chloe shrieked, her voice cracking. He's lying! He's trying to ruin us, Michael!
He's always hated me. I have the bank records right here, I said, holding them up. I have the transfer receipts. I have your credit report showing $50,000 in debt. I have the payday loan notice you took out in Michael's name. Michael walked over to me. He looked like a man walking through a nightmare. Let me see. I handed him the papers. He scanned them. His hands started to shake. He saw the transfers. He saw the gambling debts. He saw the payday loan with his forged signature. He turned to Chloe. His face wasn't angry. It was heartbroken. You stole from me, he whispered. I worked double shifts. I sold my guitar. I borrowed money. And you were gambling it. Michael, please. Chloe begged, reaching for him.
I can explain. I was going to win it back. I had a system.
I just needed a little more time.
I did it for us.
I wanted us to be rich.
For us.
Michael recoiled from her touch. You tried to feed my parents chicken in a basement while you drove a BMW you couldn't afford. Get out, Sarah said, standing up. Her voice was quiet, but it carried across the room. Get out of my house. Get out of my son's life.
You can't kick me out.
Chloe screamed, her facade completely shattering. She looked wild, cornered.
I organized this. This is my party. Actually,
I said calmly. I paid for the room. I paid for the food. I paid for the security. I nodded to the back of the room. 2 uniformed security guards, whom I had briefed earlier, stepped forward. Escort Miss Vance out, I ordered.
Michael!
She screamed as they grabbed her arms.
Don't let them do this. I love you.
Michael! Michael turned his back on her. He looked at me, tears streaming down his face. The guards dragged her out, her screams echoing in the hallway, until the heavy doors swung shut. The silence that followed was heavy, thick with shock. I looked at the guests. I apologized for the interruption. Please enjoy the dessert. The chocolate lava cake is excellent. I paid for that too. I sat down. My hands were trembling now. The adrenaline was fading, replaced by a deep, aching sadness for my son. Michael sat down next to me. He put his head in his hands. I didn't know. He sobbed quietly. Dad, I swear I didn't know. I know you didn't, I said, putting my arm around him. That's why I had to show you.
I'm so sorry,
he said.
I ruined your anniversary. No,
Sarah said, leaning across the table to take his hand. You didn't ruin anything. You're safe now. That's all that matters. But it wasn't over. The emotional fallout was just beginning. And as the guests awkwardly returned to their meals, I knew that the real work, rebuilding Michael, was going to be harder than any skyscraper I had ever designed. The rest of the evening was a blur of awkward condolences and strained cheerfulness. To their credit, our friends and family rallied. They sensed that Michael needed support, not judgment. People came up to him, patted him on the back, offered him drinks, and pointedly avoided talking about Chloe, who was awake for a relationship held in a ballroom. By 11:00 p.m., the last guests had left. The staff began clearing the tables. The ballroom, once so majestic, now looked tired. Stained napkins, empty glasses, deflated balloons. Michael was sitting on the edge of the stage, his tuxedo tie undone, staring at the floor. I walked over and sat beside him. You okay? I feel like an idiot, he said, his voice hoarse. How could I be so blind? She was spending thousands right in front of me, and I just trusted her. Trust isn't a weakness, Michael, I said. It's a virtue. She exploited it. That's on her, not you. I signed papers, Dad. I signed things I didn't read because she said it was standard vendor contracts. God knows what else she put in my name. We'll figure it out, I promised. Miller is good. We'll untangle it. I owe you money, he said, looking at me. For the party. For everything, I'll pay you back. I don't know how, but I will. Stop, I said sternly. You don't owe me a dime. The party was my choice. The only thing you need to focus on is healing. He let out a bitter laugh. Healing? I'm 28, Dad. I'm broke. I'm in debt. And my fiancée was a con artist. I'm back to square one. Square one is a good place to start, I said. It's a solid foundation. Better than building on a sinkhole. We drove him home to our house. There was no way we were letting him go back to the apartment he shared with her. Not tonight. The next morning, Sunday, the reality set in. We sat around the kitchen table. The same table where we had cracked the case just a week prior, but the mood was somber. We need to go to the apartment, Michael said, staring into his coffee. My stuff is there, and I need to see if she's there. She won't be, I predicted. She's a runner. When the game is up, people like her disappear. We drove to his apartment complex. It was a nice building in a trendy neighborhood, another expense Michael had stretched himself for. We walked up to the third floor. Michael's hand shook as he put the key in the lock. He pushed the door open. The apartment was trashed. Not destroyed in a rage, but ransacked. Drawers were pulled out. The TV was gone. The gaming console was gone. Michael's laptop, the one we had snooped on, was gone. She cleaned me out, Michael whispered, walking into the living room. She took what she could fence. I noted, looking at the empty spaces on the shelves. Quick cash. We went into the bedroom. The closet was empty of her clothes. But on the bed, there was a note. Michael picked it up. I watched him read it. His face hardened. He handed it to me. Michael, you'll never understand. I did love you, in my own way, but I needed the money. I'm in trouble with people who don't take IOUs. Thanks for the head start. Don't come looking for me. See, people who don't take IOUs. I read. She owes loan sharks. That explains the gambling, Michael said. She was trying to win enough to pay them off before they hurt her. And she was using you as the bankroll, I said. She's gone, Michael said, looking around the empty room. And she took my laptop, my portfolio, my freelance files, everything. We can recover the files, I said. But we need to call the police. This is theft. Burglary.
Ah, is it? Michael asked warily.
She lived here. She had a key. It's a domestic dispute. Taking your laptop is theft. I insisted. Taking the TV is theft. And the fraud, that's a felony. We spent the afternoon with the police. A uniformed officer took a report, but he wasn't optimistic. Without proof of who took the items, and since there's no forced entry, it's he, she said, until we find her. The officer explained. We'll file it, but don't hold your breath on getting the TV back. What about the fraud? I asked. The identity theft. The payday loans. That's a matter for the fraud division, the officer said. You'll need to file separate reports for each incident. It's going to be a process. We left the station feeling drained. Michael looked defeated. I'm going to declare bankruptcy, he said quietly in the car. I can't pay that payday loan. I can't pay the credit cards she maxed out. It's over $60,000, Dad. I gripped the steering wheel. We will fight the fraud. We will prove it wasn't you. It will take time, but we will clear your name. And in the meantime, you live with us. You rebuild. We help you. I'm almost 30, he muttered. Living with my parents. You're alive, I said. And you're free of her. That's what matters. When we got back to the house, Sarah met us at the door. She looked pale. Rob, she said. Detective Miller called. Did he find her? No, Sarah said, but he found something else. He ran a deeper check on Lux Events LLC. And it's not just Chloe, Sarah said. There's a co-signer on the business account. Someone who authorized the withdrawals. Ooh, her mother. I froze. I had met Chloe's mother once. A flighty, nervous woman named Brenda who lived in Florida. Or so I thought. Miller says the withdrawals were made from ATMs in Chicago. Sarah continued. Brenda isn't in Florida. She's here. They've been running this grift together. My blood ran cold. It wasn't just a desperate girlfriend. It was a family business. Where is she? I asked. Miller tracked the IP address of the last login to the Lux Events account. It was 2 hours ago, from a motel on the outskirts of town. The Starlight Inn. I looked at Michael. His eyes were wide. They're still here, I said. They haven't left yet? What do we do? Michael asked. I grabbed my keys. We'll go get your laptop back. Rob, that's dangerous, Sarah warned. If they owe loan sharks, I'm not afraid of Brenda and Chloe, I said. And I'm not letting them get away with my son's life. I'm coming, Michael said, a new determination in his voice. Kyle Miller, I told Sarah. Tell him to meet us there, and tell him to bring the police. We were going to the Starlight Inn, and we weren't going to be polite. The Starlight Inn was a festering sore on the edge of the city. The kind of place where people went when they didn't want to be found, or when they had nowhere else to go. The neon sign buzzed with a dying flicker, illuminating the cracked pavement of the parking lot in intermittent bursts of sickly pink light. I pulled my sedan into the lot, parking 2 rows away from the rooms to avoid immediate detection. My heart was hammering against my ribs, not with fear but with a cold, righteous anger. Beside me, Michael was silent. He stared out the window at the row of dingy doors, his jaw set so tight I could see the muscle jumping. Miller said room 112, I said, quietly checking my phone. He's 5 minutes out with the police. We wait for him. They could leave in 5 minutes. Michael said, his hand gripping the door handle. Dad, that's my car. He pointed. Tucked behind a dumpster at the far end of the lot was Chloe's BMW, but next to it was a rusted, beat-up van with Florida plates. That must be Brenda's, I surmised. They're loading up. Look, the door to room 112 opened. A woman stepped out carrying a familiar object, Michael's flat-screen TV. It was Brenda. She looked older and harder than the one time I had met her. She wore oversized sunglasses despite it being night, and she moved with a frantic, jerky energy. She shoved the TV into the side door of the van. Then Chloe emerged. She was carrying 2 duffel bags, one of which I recognized as Michael's gym bag. They're leaving now, Michael said, unbuckling his seatbelt. I'm not letting them take my life. Michael, wait. He was out of the car before I could stop him. I cursed and scrambled out after him. Michael strode across the parking lot, his stride long and purposeful. Brenda saw him first. She dropped a toaster she was holding. My toaster, I realized with a surreal pang, and shrieked. Chloe, move! Chloe spun around. When she saw Michael, her face crumpled in panic. She threw the bags into the open van door and scrambled toward the driver's seat of the BMW. No, you don't! Michael yelled. He sprinted the last few yards and slammed his hand against the BMW's door just as she tried to open it.
Get away from me!
Chloe screamed, fumbling with her keys. Give me my laptop, Michael demanded, blocking her path. And give me my keys.
I don't have them.
She lied, backing up until she hit the side of the van. I caught up to them, breathless. Brenda had pulled a tire iron from the passenger seat of the van and was holding it like a baseball bat.
Back off,
Brenda yelled, her voice raspy.
He's harassing my daughter. I'll call the cops.
Please do, I said, stepping between Brenda and Michael. Because they're already on their way, and I don't think you want to be here when they arrive. Brenda hesitated, her eyes darting to the road. She lowered the tire iron slightly. Rob. Chloe pleaded, switching tactics instantly. She looked at me with wide, tear-filled eyes.
Rob, please.
You have to understand. We're in trouble. These people, they'll kill us if we don't pay. Just let us go. I'll send the laptop back, I swear. Like you sent the vendor payments. I asked coldly. Like you paid the venue. Your word is worthless, Chloe. I loved him, she sobbed, pointing at Michael.
I did.
But my mom, she got into debt, and she dragged me into it.
Don't you put this on me, you little witch!
Brenda snarled, turning on her daughter.
You're the one who wanted the lease on the Beamer! You're the one who wanted the designer clothes!
I told you to stick to the small cons, but no. You had to land a whale. She gestured at Michael. Some whale. He's broke. Michael flinched as if slapped. The reality of it, being referred to as a whale, a mark, was the final twist of the knife. Where is the laptop? Michael asked again, his voice deadly calm. It has my work on it. My entire portfolio. You can keep the TV. You can keep the stupid car. Just give me my work. It's in the van, Chloe whispered, defeated. Don't tell him, Brenda screamed. But it was too late. Michael walked to the van and looked inside. Piled amidst bags of clothes and stolen electronics was his laptop case. He grabbed it. He checked the bag. The laptop was there. I got it, he said to me.
Let's go.
We're not going anywhere, I said, looking toward the entrance of the lot. Blue and red lights were flashing against the motel walls. Miller's dark SUV pulled in, followed by 2 squad cars. Brenda dropped the tire iron. Damn it. The next hour was a chaotic procedural. The police officers, briefed by Miller on the way over, separated Brenda and Chloe. They ran the plates on the van. Stolen. They ran Brenda's ID. 3 outstanding warrants for fraud in Florida and Georgia. Chloe was hysterical, alternately crying for Michael to save her and screaming at her mother. I watched from a distance as an officer cuffed Chloe. She looked at Michael one last time as they guided her into the back of a cruiser.
Michael,
she wailed.
I'm sorry.
Michael turned away. He walked over to where I was standing with Miller. You okay? Miller asked, lighting a cigarette. I got my laptop, Michael said. clutching the bag to his chest like a life preserver. That's all I care about. We found a box of cash in the van, too, Miller said. About $5,000. Probably what they got for fencing the other stuff. It's evidence for now, but the court will likely restitute it to you eventually. $5,000 against 60,000 in debt, Michael muttered. Drop in the bucket. It's a start, I said. We watched the police cars drive away, the siren silent now. The show was over. The grifters were caught. But there was no sense of triumph, just exhaustion. Let's go home, I said. The days that followed were a blur of legal bureaucracy. We spent hours at the station giving statements. We met with the fraud division. We met with a bankruptcy attorney. The sheer scale of their operation was staggering. Brenda and Chloe had been running this scam for 5 years. They would move to a new city. Brenda would find a low-profile job to establish residency, and Chloe would hunt for a mark, usually a young professional with good credit and a trusting nature. She would date them, move in, get access to their financials, drain them dry, and then they would vanish in the night. Michael wasn't just a victim of a bad breakup. He was a victim of a professional predatory ring. In a strange way, this knowledge helped him. It wasn't that he was unlovable or a bad judge of character. He had been targeted by experts. The police investigator told us that Chloe had even taken acting classes to perfect her doting girlfriend persona. But the financial damage was real. The payday loans, the credit cards, the drained savings. It was a mess. We sat in the office of Mr. Henderson, a bankruptcy lawyer I had known for years. It's a tough situation, Henderson said, reviewing the file. Because you authorized her as a user on the credit cards, the banks are going to argue that the debt is yours. The identity theft claim works for the payday loans she took out without your knowledge, but the joint account spending, that's harder to fight. So I'm stuck with the debt, Michael asked, rubbing his temples. We can fight it, Henderson said, given the criminal charges against her. We have a strong case for fraudulent inducement. We can argue that the entire relationship was a fraud designed to steal from you. It's rare, but with the police reports and the history of her mother, a judge might discharge the debts without you having to file for Chapter 7 bankruptcy. How long will that take? Months, maybe a year. And it will cost money for the legal fees. I placed a hand on Michael's arm. I'll cover the legal fees. Dead, I can't let you. Michael, I interrupted. I am investing in a reclamation project. You are the building. I am securing the foundation. You can pay me back when you're a famous designer. Michael looked at me, his eyes wet. Okay? Thank you. We left the office and walked out into the autumn sunshine. The air was crisp, signaling the coming winter. You know, Michael said, stopping on the sidewalk. I was going to propose to her on Christmas. I know, I said. I had a ring picked out. It was way too expensive. She pointed it out to me. She knew, I said. She knew exactly how to push your buttons. I feel like I don't know who I am anymore, he admitted. I thought I was a guy getting married, starting a life. Now I'm a guy living in his parents' guest room fighting lawsuits. You're still Michael, I said. You're the guy who sprinted across a parking lot to save his work. You're the guy who stood up in that ballroom and faced the truth instead of running away. That takes courage, son. More courage than I had at your age. He smiled, a genuine, albeit small, smile. You were pretty badass at the party, Dad. I review the final punch list. That was terrifying. I chuckled. I admit I enjoyed that part a little too much. We walked to the car. The road ahead was long. There would be court dates, depositions, and awkward encounters with mutual friends who still didn't understand what happened. But as we drove back to the suburbs, back to the house that Sarah and I had built, I felt a sense of peace. The storm had passed, the damage was done. Now it was time to rebuild. 1 year later, architecture is the art of patience. You draw a line, and it represents a wall that won't exist for 6 months. You pour concrete, and you have to wait 28 days for it to cure to full strength. If you rush it, it cracks. Recovery is much the same. It had been exactly 1 year since the Sterling Gala, the anniversary of the worst night of my son's life. Or, as we had come to call it, Independence Day. I was in the kitchen frosting a cake. Not a wedding cake, but a birthday cake. Michael turned 29 today. Sarah came in, carrying a stack of mail. She looked lighter. Younger than she had a year ago. The stress of watching her son drown had evaporated, replaced by the relief of watching him learn to swim. Letter from the Department of Justice, she said, handing me a thick envelope. I wiped my hands on a towel and opened it. It was a restitution update. State of Illinois vs. Chloe Vance and Brenda Vance. Defendant Chloe Vance, Currently serving a 4-year sentence for wire fraud and identity theft. Defendant Brenda Vance currently serving a 6-year sentence. Restitution payment enclosed to $145.50. I laughed. $145. It's a start. It's from their prison wages, Sarah noted. It probably took them 6 months to earn that. Good, I said. I hope they sweated for every cent. The legal battle had been grueling but successful. Henderson, our lawyer, had performed a miracle. By proving that Chloe's actions were part of a larger criminal enterprise, he had managed to get the majority of the credit card debt discharged as fraud. The payday loan companies, faced with the police reports and the threat of bad publicity, had dropped their claims. Michael was still digging himself out of a small hole, mostly legal fees and the personal loans he had taken from friends. But he was solvent. And more importantly, his credit score was recovering. The back door opened, and Michael walked in. He looked different. He had cut his hair shorter, grown a beard, and filled out a bit. He looked like a man, not a boy. Smells like chocolate, he said, eyeing the cake. Your favorite, I said. Happy birthday, son. Thanks, Dad. He dropped his bag on the table. It was a new bag, leather, professional. How was the pitch? I asked. Michael had spent the last year rebuilding his career with a ferocity I had never seen in him before. He had stopped taking low, paying freelance gigs, and had launched his own boutique branding agency, Sterling Design. He worked out of our basement for 6 months, then moved into a co-working space downtown. Today was a big meeting with a potential retainer client. I think I got it, he said, trying to suppress a grin. They like the rebrand. They want to sign a 6-month contract.
That's wonderful.
Sarah hugged him. And, Michael added, pulling a bottle of wine out of his bag. I stopped by the store. I thought we should celebrate. I looked at the bottle. It wasn't the overpriced Reserve Cabernet Chloe used to buy to impress us. It was a decent, mid-range Pinot Noir, honest wine. We sat down to dinner. Roast chicken, just like that night a year ago. But the atmosphere was completely different. There was no tension, no hidden agendas, just the comfortable silence of people who know each other deeply. Midway through the meal, Michael cleared his throat. I met someone, he said. Sarah and I exchanged a glance. We froze.
Oh, Sarah asked,
her voice careful. Her name is Elena. She's an architect. Well, a landscape architect. I raised an eyebrow. A landscape architect. Do they even know how to pour a foundation? Michael laughed. She says architects just build gray boxes and she makes them livable. I like her already, Sarah said. We're taking it slow, Michael said, swirling his wine. Very slow. I told her everything about Chloe, about the debt, about living with my parents. And, she said, sounds like you have a good story to tell. And she paid for her own coffee. I smiled. That's a very good sign. I'm not rushing into anything, Michael assured us. I'm focusing on the business, on me. But it's nice to trust someone again, a little bit. Trust is structural, I said. You have to test the load limits gradually. Spoken like a true architect, Michael rolled his eyes. After dinner, we cut the cake. As we ate, I looked around the table. My family. We had taken a direct hit. We had been scammed, lied to, and humiliated. But we hadn't collapsed. If anything, the cracks had been filled with something stronger than before. I have something for you too, I said to Michael. I went to the hallway and retrieved a framed document. I handed it to him. It was a printout of the final court order officially clearing his record of the identity theft judgments. It came yesterday, I said. You're officially in the clear, Michael. The slate is clean. He stared at the document. He traced the judge's signature with his finger. I don't know how to thank you guys, he said, his voice thick with emotion. For the lawyer. For the room.
For catching her. You don't have to thank us,
Sarah said. You're our son. I learned a lot this year, Michael said. I learned that expensive doesn't mean valuable. I learned that words are cheap. And I learned that when the roof caves in, you find out who's really standing next to you. He raised his glass. To the cleanup crew, he toasted. I clinked my glass against his. To the new foundation. Later that night, after Michael had gone home, to his own small, rented apartment that he paid for with his own money, I sat on the porch with Sarah. The neighborhood was quiet. The leaves were turning gold under the streetlights. We did good, Rob, Sarah said, leaning her head on my shoulder. We did. I agreed. Do you miss it? She asked. The excitement, playing detective. God, no, I laughed. I prefer blueprints. They don't lie to you. I bumped into Chloe's mother's lawyer at the courthouse last week. Sarah mentioned casually. Oh, apparently Chloe is not doing well in prison. She's working in the laundry. She hates the uniforms. I snorted. Fitting. And she writes letters. To Michael. But the prison returns them because he put a block on her. Good. I looked out at the street. I thought about the Sterling Gala. The memory of it still made me wince slightly, the public spectacle, the shouting. But it was necessary. Sometimes you have to do a controlled demolition to stop a fire from spreading. We had blown up Michael's life to save it, and looking at the man he was becoming, stronger, wiser, more cautious but still kind, I knew we had made the right call. You know, I said to Sarah, our anniversary is coming up again. 36 years. Don't you dare suggest a party, she warned. I was thinking pizza, I said, and maybe a movie on the couch. Sarah smiled and kissed my cheek. That sounds like perfect luxury to me. We sat there for a while longer, watching the world go by, secure in the knowledge that our house, our real house, the one built of love and loyalty, was standing strong, outrow. I'm Robert, 58, male well. That's the story of how my anniversary party turned into a sting operation. It's been a year, and while the bank accounts are still recovering, our family is tighter than ever. Michael is happy, healthy, and finally dating someone who pays for her own coffee. As for me, I've gone back to worrying about load-bearing walls and zoning permits, which is exactly how I like it. It makes you think, though. We often trust the people closest to us implicitly, but sometimes the biggest threats are sleeping right next to us. I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments. Have you ever discovered a secret about a partner or a family member that completely changed how you saw them? Or have you ever had to intervene to save someone you love from a bad relationship? Share your stories below. I read every single one. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more about how we navigate the crazy blueprints of life, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. It really helps the channel, and it ensures you won't miss the next update. Thanks for watching, and remember, always check the foundation before you build.